Hi, I'm James Corbin and this is Amanda Hines.
How you going?
Amanda's the queen of microregions. You may not know, but she had some early childhood time up in Collinsville and Bowen. She then moved to the North Burnett, and through that period of time her parents were involved with service stations and food and tourism.
Big roadhouses.
And she's been very passionate ever since then about fresh produce, beautifully cooked and presented.
Yes.
Amanda had a cafe in Bundaberg in Dulge, which won the Good Food People's Choice Award for Queensland 2 years running. Her new cafe Emerald is situated in a tiny town of Hampton at the heart of the high country hamlets, about half an hour's drive north of Toowoomba. In their first year, Emerald was finalist in the Best Queensland Regional Restaurant and won the Courier Mail Best Family Brunch Restaurant.
Yes.
Which is fantastic. Amanda, it's your turn to shine now. Can you tell us about how you came to search out and use locally produced green ingredients and why it's important to use them?
Okay, so probably comes. I married a beef farmer, and a small cropping farmer. So, there's always been that connection of growing bits and pieces, and having them on the. Always noticed that there was a very strong call for people to have that connection. And, we sold dogs and horses, and we had a very special pomelo tree, which was on the other side of where I lived, which was a very old pomelo tree. And one of my key things for selling like a kelpie or a horse was this yogurt coconut cake that had fresh pomelo juice squeezed over it, and it would be steaming, and I'd be saying, this dog's like, $500 or a couple of grand or something like that, and I'd give them a piece of cake and they were on their way. So there was some connection with that. But I guess as we moved on and, we moved to Bundaberg and, there's always been a massive gap in the market, for that connection with the farmer and telling that story. And I hadn't really seen it. I had seen it in bibs and bobs and maybe, there's bits through Europe and stuff like that where people would connect maybe produce and maybe region and then variety. And I can remember asking this question to Rick Stein and Maggie Beer at a forum one day, and sort of, about connections to those sorts of things. And wouldn't that be a great thing if we could connect all our food to farmers? And they were sort of thought I was a bit mad. This is quite a few years ago. But so Indulge was very much about, making that connection and telling that story on menus. So it was about connecting with, say, a tomato farmer, a varietal, that would be, say, Bill's tomatoes. He might have grown me something that was very, very special, and then we would tell that story on the menu. So it sort of went from there. It was just an integral part of the business, is telling that story and connecting the farmer to the menu and to us.
It's interesting you mentioned Bill, because I remember talking to him in Bundaberg, and he spoke about the first time he saw his produce named on your menu, and how proud he felt after 40 years of being a farmer, putting things in boxes and sending them off to the marketplace, and suddenly there's a connection to the consumer. So we're here to talk about agri-tourism, culinary tourism, local produce, micro-regions. There's a whole lot of terms for it. And in fact, we're here to celebrate fresh produce, grown locally, having travelled very little distance to where it's lovingly prepared and consumed. So more and more Australians are looking at where their food comes from, how healthy and safe it is, and we're following in the footsteps of Europe. And you mentioned some classic people from television from those places. Where even in the supermarkets, fruit and vegetables are labelled with their origin, and serious fines are levied if there's not truth in it. So I was in France last year, and they're in fact even getting a test that they can do, like a DNA test for fruit and vegetables, and they're going to even the small markets to see if people are telling the truth about where those products come from. They're really serious about that.
Well, it's a serious game.
It is. And the markets in those places are very, even though they've got big supermarkets, there's so many people go to the markets, and markets are either daily or twice a week. And they like to know about who produced the goods, where they came from, and that's a really important part, and this word provenance will come into the conversation as we go through it.
Yeah.
But I think we will see that being more and more important as time goes by. And in fact, let's face it, we'd all prefer our produce to travel, say, 20k or 100k from where it's grown, rather than a 2,000 kilometre trip down to Brisbane to the markets and back again. Good. So today we'll talk about many aspects of using local produce. As well as Amanda and I will hear from just a few of the farmers and producers in this area who take pride in their produce and endeavour to supply them to the locals.
Yeah.
So Amanda, you might talk to us about the heroes of the day, the farmers, and how you managed to talk them into supplying you with produce from local and as fresh and as good as they can.
Look, I've been asked this so many times over the years about, people that say, we can't get farmers to supply us, or, we don't have time to travel out to the farm, or, there's a whole lot of things. Usually, if you're in an area and, maybe you're in the city, as we were in Bundaberg, and whether we're in Hampton now, but it was always very, very easy if you showed an interest in what farmers are doing, and for me, it was all about putting them on a pedestal and telling that story, sort of raising them up to superstar level. We've talked about this before, about how chefs can only do so much. If we can't do what we do without amazing product, and of course we can't do that without amazing farmers or amazing producers, whether they be trawlers, somebody that's collecting, say, zucchinis, or, a macadamia farmer, or any of those, or, dairy, or any of those sorts of things. It's all about making, realising where you fit into this. And that, for me, it's always been about telling that story about how important the farmer is to us. It's never been a problem, because we would say, are you coming into town? If you're coming into town to do some banking, are you coming into town to maybe, grab some groceries or something, would you mind dropping us off, 3 cases of tomatoes? Or could you possibly, I can remember Macadamias Australia in Bundaberg, there was always someone coming into town, so they would drop off like a 10 to 20 kilo box of macadamias, and they were always happy, to make sure that we had a product, because they knew that their name was going to be attached to it. And I think there's the key, is that if you're telling a story about a farmer, that's it could be anybody's such and such as pecans from Mandubra, which we were very heavily connected to the chickens up there in Mandubra.
By the way, I'll just say the chickens are the name of the family, not the chickens
not chickens growing pecans. But, you would tell that story, these are Mandubra pecans, grown by the, and it's not about, raving on for hours and hours, or these menus that are this long and then telling whole. It's just about giving them a brief, Halo Farm Rhubarb, with on your breakfast menu. So then what you do is you lift that farmer up. And there's another level that comes with that and about produce, is that when a farmer knows that he's on the front page of your like on the door, he's on the front page of your cafe or your restaurant, and you're saying, we're doing Hurla's limes today, local limes, whether it's syrup cake, blah, blah, blah. The thing is that that's then all about them. It's about, and you will find then that they will only give you their best stuff. And the other lovely thing about that is that they might have something else tucked away that maybe they don't grow commercially that they'd like to share with you. There's a whole series of things that unwind when you speak to a
So talking about unwinding, I heard a story about you.
All right.
Chasing a farmer across a paddock.
Oh, yeah, that might be a bit of urban myth, James. But I always believe that, if a product was if there's a product in your region that is maybe leaving your region, there's a bit of a story about Bundaberg raspberries. And, a few years ago, Bundaberg, somehow, this is in the middle of summer, that you only believe that raspberries are grown down south, and that all of a sudden I had a farmer come to me at the back door who was supplying us honey and root vegetables and all that. And he said to me, I know who's growing raspberries and you can't have any. And I'm like, who says that? Like, who says that? And I said, what, in Bundaberg? And he said, yeah, they're growing raspberries in Bundaberg. And I said, really? Well, we'll be having some of those then. So we just, you just make it your goal to make sure that you can get things like that on your menu. So within probably about a 3-week period, I had hunted down where the raspberries were, how we could get them, and for someone to drop them into us while they were in town. And then we had Bundaberg raspberries, which were a first off. They were the newest thing, and they were on our menu straight away. And then that was that connection to them as well, who were guys that were probably one of the biggest cucumber suppliers, I think, in the whole of the country. And then they started to delve into raspberries. Who would have ever thought at the time? But it's that connection with that other farmer that knew, maybe was beside them, that said, oh, I know a restaurateur in town, I know a cafe owner in town, or I know, a butcher that might like to keep a product, on the side of the... There's always someone that can be connected through that cycle. It's a very beautiful thing once it starts. And then I think one of the nice things about Indulge, and it happens at Hampton as well, is that farmers congregate around where other farmers congregate, and they have chats. And then it's really lovely, because then you start to put them together on menus. And it was always beautiful. I'd have someone like Jeanette too, who was our prawn farmer, and someone like who, and it was also making XO sauce for us. And then a lime farmer would come in, or you'd be connecting tomato growers and, herb farmers, and you'd be taking these farmers from wherever, and they were basically connected on a menu. And it was almost like, you guys don't know each other, but you know each other. Like, you're so good together, when it comes to being on a menu. So that connection is so important.
And it's great to see, as we chatted to farmers around the district here, we're seeing all that connection starting to happen.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing once it starts to happen. And look, we're in a raw environment like Hampton, which wasn't, was semi-connected, I guess, but it's people realising that they have something very beautiful. And we heard from Chip Saint about this morning from Halo Farm, about what it's about that. Oh, have you got, and then there's, oh, you've got rhubarb, right? Well, maybe you've got some passion fruits, or maybe you've got some of these. And then it's just that growing that and giving them that a little bit that it's okay to sell to the locals. It's okay for us to stock your rhubarb. It's okay for us to take Ravensbourne passion fruit. They may not be going anywhere else. They might be a major supplier to the rest of the country in avocados, but did you know he's got a couple of rows of passion fruit down the back? Dave Galati in Bundaberg, classic story, which was, we did a very large food dinner, lunch, called the Sunday Soiree, which would entail about 180 people and shutting down the streets in Bundaberg. It was all about our producers. And I can still remember a little bit before this, we were setting out menus, and it came to peas. We wanted to do this beautiful shot of fresh pea soup and Dave had always grown, bits and pieces of stuff. And I was like, have you got peas in, Dave? And he was like, no. And I went, what? And he said, oh, there's a guy down the road that's got some peas. And I said, all right. He goes, oh, but they're probably not good enough for you. He said, oh, doesn't matter, I'll put you in a row. And of course, then we had these it was always an amazing connection.
I remember the final project that you had out of that was amazing pea soup.
Beautiful. And people saying, like, I've never tasted anything like this. Well, you've never had anything that fresh when it's picked by a farmer and it's brought to you. And that was Dave's. That was Rosengale. That was all about them. And then when Dave walked into Indulge, everyone would go, oh, that's Dave.
Yes.
He's the pea grower here. He's the bean grower. He's that guy, that's on the menu. And Anthony Raybine, another very good friend of mine who has grown us ginger. I guess we marketed him and did the whole ginger on-sell thing with him. So it's helping them as well. But that was all about, would do basically anything and everything. If you wanted a certain potato grown, if they were growing watermelons, and there was a spare a spare row, it was like, well, maybe we can, slip something else in there just for you and we'll hold it there. We might put some Dutch creams in down beside the Sebagos. The Sebagos go to Brisbane, Melbourne, Sydney. The Dutch creams stay in Bundaberg, and it's premium. So, Mark.
Yes, Amanda.
How do you manage the distribution chain?
Yeah.
So you're sending limes to the big guys, they're going to Melbourne.
Yeah.
And then you've got another product which is maybe a bit riper.
Yeah.
How are you managing that?
Well, most of the riper product, like the good stuff, actually, we call it the good stuff, that we throw it away.
Yeah, we call it the really good stuff. Yeah.
So the really good stuff, apparently, society's been conditioned to believe that if a fruit looks a little bit like yellowing like this, and like limes are actually ripe when they're yellow. But the beauty of limes is that, you get the different flavours at the different stages of the lime.
Yeah.
So really, the whole idea would be to introduce people into the whole concept of buy yourself a really dark green, hard green as we call it, for your zest and for in your cooking.
Yeah.
And then the next stage could be that little bit lighter, and the juice actually changes. So when you've got the really hard green limes, it's real zesty. It's the kind of stuff where you go, shit.
Yeah, it enlivens everything right up.
Yeah, and you want that in particular, as you would know, in particular foods.
Yeah, like for a cake or something. Yeah.
And then you get to some of the bigger stuff, like, like even here, like this lime here is not one of the biggest, but the reality of this lime, I won't put it under my hand, is that when you get to this stage of the lime, they're still green inside.
Yeah.
But they're just so full of juice.
Look at that juice.
Like, and that's what you're missing, folks.
Yeah.
Like, you're buying these hard green limes. Yes, do that. We want to sell you hard green.
Yeah.
But, it's a bit of a juggling act, man. We're forever looking for a different way of selling product.
And from a restaurateur's point of view, like for someone like me, of course, that lime is so much more valuable to me because it's full of juice.
Yeah.
And if we're putting it into a drink or putting it into making a syrup or something like that, that's the product that maybe isn't going to market.
That's right.
That is then maybe cheaper that, say, a local could buy, that's going to, say, a local restaurant, cafe, or even just for your G&T.
Exactly.
And it's a cheaper product, and I guess the big boys don't want it, but we want it. It's more valuable to us.
And it's still going to last. Like that lime's still going to be good, easy for a couple of weeks, just sitting on your bench, you know. And he's only just going to get juicier and juicier the longer. And if you give them a bit of a roll, they even get juicier.
Yeah.
And you break the oils up. Like limes,
It's shiny.
I mean, they're a medicinal food.
Yeah.
Like they're full of antioxidants. They can actually help to cure some cancers, you know. I mean, they're great for cardiovascular. They say if you drink a bit of lime juice every day, it'll help keep all your arteries clear.
Yeah.
And if it's in gin or a rum or
Even
something, it's even better.
Cleans out the whole lot.
So how would you sell these? If the big boys only want to take the dark green ones, where do you sell these?
Well, there isn't any real particular market for it. So we do a local market here in Toowoomba called the Cobb and Co. And we've only just started doing it, but we found it to be an absolutely brilliant avenue for getting rid of some of what we call our best limes. And, we're selling them at fair prices, but they're full of juice, and we're educating the public. And what's funny is that after you hear all the big boys say that no one will buy that, nobody wants that, when I go direct to the public and I stand there and I take out a lime and they go, oh, it's a little bit yellow, I go, yeah, I know, but look, it's still green inside and it's full of juice. And as soon as I do that, the public just go, oh my God, I'll have a bag of those.
And those little hard green limes that you would, that potentially what Coles and Woolies want in places like that, there's no way in the world that's happening when you pick that up.
I don't really have one here that I could show you. Oh, look, this is a typical hard green. Here's another one I've prepared earlier.
Oh, brilliant. Good on you.
I always wanted to say that on telly. So they are still going to have juice, but you're not going to get as much juice. Like, there's still plenty.
There's plenty there, but it's a big difference, isn't it?
But the flavour's different. Like, you try that. Get your laughing gear around that.
To me, the outside of this, when the oil comes off, this can almost it can like annihilate your tongue sometimes. Yeah, whereas that one's
Zesty.
probably really it's much sweeter, so that residual sugar's coming through.
Yeah, I mean, if you're doing a taste test, this one's getting on. Have a crack.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, that's sweeter.
Oh,
It is.
that is beautiful, isn't it?
It's not like sucking a lemon.
It's not like sucking a lemon.
No, it's not.
Or a dark green
Well,
lime.
we always say that a lemon's a poor man's lime.
Absolutely. And I think what we've seen is we've done these forums in a lot of places now, and usually face to face, but in this case we can't.
Yeah.
And a number of places we've gone to, and they said, "Oh, we don't really have much produce here. You know, it works in Bundaberg or it works in whatever." And every time we've done it, the amount of produce that people don't know about that comes out of the woodwork, so to speak.
Yeah, there's always going to be something. So for Hampton, it was walnuts. There's no walnuts grown in Queensland. And then I got wind of that there was walnuts. I didn't chase anyone across a paddock, James.
Well,
It was quite simple. I contacted Rosalie, and I just said to her, look, she was probably doing 90 kilos of walnuts, which is such a rare commodity in Queensland. And once you've tasted a fresh walnut, you go, everything else is rancid. Anything that's coming in from overseas is rancid. Like, it tastes terrible. And you eat a fresh walnut and you go, what's wrong with this? It tastes fresh. It's not rancid. Like, it's amazing. So what we did was we just said, we're happy to buy the 90 kilos. And then she basically would crack to order, and we use everything over the year. And I think we've just used our last maybe 10 kilos in the last few weeks for the whole year. But then there was that value add on that she could maybe pickle some green walnuts. So we did that as well. So there was that encouragement as well. But there's always going to be something in the woodwork that you don't know about. And it's about asking that question. Most farmers, good farmers, have something, and they're super passionate about farming. Don't believe that it's just a job. It's not. It's a generational thing that's built into their hearts, and it's very, very close to them. And most of them are absolutely incredible farmers. And to talk about Bill again, my old tomato grower in Bundaberg, who would come up with just the most amazing things, and he would be and you always knew that I was brought up on eggplants and was quite passionate. So he would just put in these varieties, and he'd be saying, comes in and he'd have a white one and a stripy one, and he'd have some smaller ones, and he'd be like, try these, try this. Nothing about them going to Melbourne. This was just about us. And then it was about growing his tomato business so that we had this, these premium tomatoes that then were available to every cafe, every restaurant in town. So it wasn't only me that was getting the good produce, it lifts the scale of the whole area. So Bill then was like, oh, well, I'm going to supply you. He grew his business all the way out to Harvey Bay, I think, at the time, which is probably another good 150 kilometres away. But the thing was that that level then rises. It raises the bar.
Everyone.
So he then started to put in more. And this all started with, oh, Amanda, I'm growing some tomatoes for my wife. Would you like some? Just for home. We tried the tomatoes. Oh, they're fabulous. And then it was, can you grow some of these for me, Bill? And he went, oh, can't see why not. And then it started from there. And he went from being like maybe a tray a week to like a big business, a big business locally. Yeah. And then there was that attachment of Bill to go and visit people in restaurants and cafes or, fruit barns or whatever it was, where whoever was taking that produce. And then it was about telling those stories. And Bill was known everywhere because it was Bill's tomatoes. And if you went to like one of the local supermarkets that stocked a lot of local produce, that was it. These are from... And then there's that little story. And then there's a link there for the tourist. There's, you come here to eat our food. This is not about you coming here to eat, say, a raspberry from Tasmania or eating salmon from Tasmania. This is about you coming here and having a piece of prime reef fish, of river prawns, here, and this is what we grow here, yep. And this is what we want.
So when you go to Tassie, you would expect to get Tassie raspberries.
I want to eat mussels in Tassie. I want to eat oysters. But of course, if I was, if I'm travelling, I want to eat what's the best in your region. I don't want to eat food from somebody else's region. So, I guess from a tourism perspective, and fair enough, getting something to eat at home. But if you are feeding a tourist and you're looking
we want
after
the best of the area.
you want the best of the area. You want them to have your prawns.
Yes.
You want them
Well, this
to
is
have
our beef.
your
This is
your
our-
dairy,
yeah.
your cheese, your tomatoes, your everything. And of course, that's what it's all about.
So just before we finish off on distribution and getting about, we did some work in the South Burnett, and they've been very smart using new technology and set up a very simple closed Facebook page between the farmers and the people who will take that product. So the farmers can say, at the moment we're harvesting XYZ, contact us. So Rolly, perhaps, with his Rosellas or various products that he does. So it's a really nice, simple, neat system for them to be aware of what's around and at the time, and it's using new technology in terms of doing that.
Morning, how you going?
Morning.
Palo Farm, bloody beautiful here this morning.
It's all right.
We want to hear about what you guys have been up to and how you're value adding your product. We grow this amazing rhubarb. We use it down at the shop, and I know a couple of other restaurants using it as well. What else are you doing, and how's it all working for you guys?
Well, if I start with a bit of a story how we came to get the rhubarb for a start. We moved here in 2017 and we refer to this as wild caught rhubarb.
Wild caught.
Wild caught rhubarb.
Wild pig.
And I say that because in the neighbouring property, when we moved in, a new fella turned up by the name of Daryl Boardman, and Daryl had a crop of rhubarb that he wasn't going to use. He was going to plough into the ground to plant more avocado trees. And we said, we wouldn't mind some of that. He said, well, you've got like a day to go
To
and
get it.
Go and get it.
So in the middle of the night, Joe and I are out there wild catching our rhubarb, and what you see here is the result of our wild caught rhubarb program.
Yep.
And we initially got about 150 by moonlight, and we planted them in the ground and nurtured them, and now we've got about 500 crowns of rhubarb. So we put that rhubarb in the ground. It's done its thing. We've adopted a scientific farming method where we dig a hole, put it in there, we put water on it and expose it to sunlight. And
A little bit of a dynamic lifter.
a little bit of dynamic lifter on it occasionally,
Yeah.
and it grows.
Yeah.
And we were then confronted with the age-old farming problem of what you do with distributing, what you do with the product. And fortunately then, Amanda, you came along
Yeah.
and offered us a way to sell the product. And we sold the product initially, as you know, as a fresh product.
Yeah.
But through our relationship with Amanda, she suggested we try to value add to the product. So we make a rhubarb cordial that we made towards the end of summer that we'll do a little bit of testing and adjusting on over the winter.
Peachy Gin will be in on that, I reckon.
not
I
something
reckon
that-
they might be too.
And Daryl Boardman's, whatever he's got going on down there with the Ravensbourne
Oh,
Sunrise,
yeah.
he'll be using that. So we do make a rhubarb cordial. We also make a rhubarb chutney, and we make a rhubarb jam. So those are sold down at Emerald. We've had people asking whether we can send it out by post. That's probably a bridge too far for us at this stage.
Yeah.
But certainly,
towards it.
certainly the uptake of the value-added product has been pretty good. Down the track, if we can add in, so we do have some finger limes here, but more importantly, if we can add in someone like Mark Hurlar's limes into the product to make a sort of a high country hamlets product, that would be even better.
So it's great to see you all working together and looking at the opportunities.
Yeah.
So Amanda, I want to talk about seasonality, because a lot of people will go, oh yes, but we can't get that all year here. So that wrecks my, perhaps, and we might say avocados, smashed avocados, but they're not available all the year round. How do you look at that?
So I think there's got to be some, things where you don't have to be fearful. Don't be afraid to change your menu. Like, don't be afraid to have a go at something different. There's no need, for you to have a set menu for like the next 5 years, or, there's nothing wrong from, maybe having 4 menus a year.
Seasonal,
Here
yeah.
at Hampton, we try to have a menu that sort of just changes daily, just a smidge on what's good and what's changing. And if the walnuts have run out last week, well, they come off the menu and something else goes in there. So it's about you don't have to put, oranges in season, on there just because you need to have them. You don't have to have them. Avocados are a classic example of seasonality and what people expect. And, over the years, over the last couple of years, we've seen a massive rise in avocados on toast, which is great for the avocado industry. It's great for my mate, Darryl Boardman, and Avocados Australia. Like, it's a fabulous thing.
It's an evolution.
It's an evolution. It is an evolution. The thing is, though, when avocados are in season, they're amazing. When they go out of season, we start seeing New Zealand avocados come in. Now they're starting to get more and more varieties that are a bit earlier. And if you're talking to the local growers, you will find that they have other avocados other than, and we talked about this with Darryl as well, that they will have other varieties that are maybe a little bit earlier. They'll have ones that are much later that you may not know about, that they maybe keep at home. They may share them out amongst workers or all sorts of things that you might not just, won't know about them. But the thing is keeping those menus seasonal and fresh. So when for instance, when the avocado goes out of season, take it off your menu. Don't be afraid to try something else. You might have something else that's spectacular that's coming in right at that point in time. The local butcher may have just done some gypsy smoked flasho ham that you can tell a story about that then. It's not always got to be about that. And you can train your customers to move with you. And you can train your customers to trust you, that when it's good, when it's finished. That you might be able to get limes all year round. We can get blueberries all year round here. We're in a very, very lucky position that we can have blueberries on the menu all year round. But there's certain things that we won't be able to have. You can't always have great tomatoes. There's certain things that's seasonality, but that's about telling that story as well.
About rejoicing in the seasonality.
Pick of the crop. I think we used to sell 8 boxes of avocados a week at Indulge for pick of the crop, which was all about the avocado industry and telling that story about the avocado. And people would be like, when's pick of the crop starting? It's like these amazing Simpson Farm avocados from Bundaberg that, been ripened and all the rest of it. And then it'd be like pick of the crop's ending. And people were like, oh my God, but isn't it so exciting?
There's something new comes
having
in.
to wait, say, 3 months and going, it's so much better to wait, to wait for that beautiful product that's coming again. And teaching your customers to eat seasonally. It's a much better way. I remember
being in France last year about this time, and the white asparagus had come in. And that's a very short season.
Yeah.
But they look forward to it.
Yeah.
And when it's finished, and you look forward to it till the next year.
What a wonderful thing if we would, the thought of, like stone fruit. It seems to be available. We do all these imports. Of course, that's not going to be happening this year, but you see all these imports. So we have like stone fruit in the middle of winter, and I just go, it's just bizarre. And one of the things about stone fruit is heat. Like you sort of think, it gets hot, watermelons start, it's all that thought, the smell, the fragrance comes off the fruit in the warmer weather. And then all of a sudden we've got fruit from overseas. Like, don't use that. Just wait, just hold on. Use your own local suppliers. Try to keep, even if they're Queensland growers, Australian growers, try and keep those people on your menus instead of using those imported products or American navels or any of that sort of stuff. Try and use something else. If you've got a lemon instead of a lime, one, you can't get one, you use the other. Try and use the other. So.
And I think we try and force things too much. Not many people I tell this to, Amanda, but I'm actually born in Tasmania. And
sorry, that's the other.
And so that's really the home of stone fruit. And I really miss the stone fruit quality from there because it's, it's grown, it's often picked greenish, it's whatever you've got. And it's not that beautiful, ripe.
Yeah, luscious, beautiful.
I know you can't see my chin anymore, but it dribbles down through there, and that's the thing I miss because I think a lot of things are being forced onto us rather than having that natural progression.
Yeah, and just like try to use what you have, and then you can supplement your menus with other bits and pieces around it, but don't be forced by, oversees or your customer, you will end up with a much better product if you're using stuff that's in season.
Yep.
So how are you going?
I'm well, thank you. How are
Bloody,
you?
the orchard's looking amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
And you're in prime production at the moment.
Yes. Yes.
So we were just going to talk about fruit and what's happening, I guess, at the moment. So about your premium stuff that's going to market, and then basically some ideas about what would happen with maybe some of the seconds and how you deal with maybe the local market, and just some ideas for people about what you do.
Yeah. Yeah, so years ago we used to dump a lot of fruit, a lot of seconds, fruit that was, damaged by insects or a machine or whatever. But today, most of that fruit all goes to a flea market, farmers markets, people delivering direct to homes. There's the processing guys that all got going. There's guacamole, there's the fresh Avo-Fresh product you can buy in Woolies. Lots of stuff's happening with that. There's even other new exciting things people are trying. So that type of stuff's going. But the premium fruit market, the Woolworths and Coles and export fruit, that's always been there, and it's selling better than ever as well.
Yeah.
Through this crisis, I guess you're asking about at the moment. we've as we just talked about a moment ago, there's still the whole population have got to eat.
Absolutely.
And and they don't, and I think they are eating more avocados at home, and we were worried as an industry the smashed avocado cafes closed and everything could have been a real effect on us, but we haven't seen that, and we've seen that basically the same amount of avocados are walking out at the moment as what would normally.
Yeah. So in that good time though, those second avocados are amazing for someone like me. That we're maybe turning that out to that local travelling tourist market, having that available for people to come and say, these are Ravensbourne avocados. You can have them on toast this morning. You can have them, with a bit of bacon or whatever you want. That's a really, really special, and having them maybe available to buy. How important is having, your fruit, say, out on that roadside stall and being a part of that and making that part of the community and the interest that, I guess, that has for like the travelling public?
Yeah. Oh, look, we've had the roadside stall there because that was where we used to get rid of a lot of our seconds.
Yeah.
A lot of roadside stalls, a lot of farmers get cranky with it because people steal they knock them off, and but my thoughts have always been, I don't really mind if they steal, because that person that just stole one might have never eaten an avocado, and now they've eaten one and they might become an avocado eater for the rest of their life. So that's been my theory about the roadside stall, and the people that do steal, maybe they just need to get some free food. So but and it's a real small minority that make it bad for the rest. But but to me, it's important, and supplying people like yourself, Amanda, in your shop, in your restaurant, is to us is a great thing, and because it's local, and as you say, people get to know, and our food's getting blended with other growers' food that you're making meals out of, which is
and that that attachment to, say, we've just been to see Mark Hurler, that lime comes out with that. The other thing I was going to say is about the different varieties and the different flavours, and how interesting it has been to be here, because you've got quite a lot of different varieties here that the general public may not even know about. And a couple of times we've done that whole, these are all the different, these are Sharwells and these are Hass, and these are these massive big long things that you have down. that it's really lovely for the general public to see that there isn't only just Hass. And sometimes a region may grow a variety like Sharwell or Fuerte, which are such a amazing avocado that people have never had before, and that it's like, they're grown at Ravensbourne or they're grown at Hampton, and telling that little bit of a story about the grower and about you, and then that it's so lovely that when say the customer, someone's sitting down eating avocado on toast, and a grower walks in with a couple of boxes of avocados, and they walk straight into the kitchen, and then it's like, there's the attachment straight away. So that's an amazing thing. I
think the variety thing you're talking about is really important, except if someone eats a Sharwell or the big long one or whatever, they probably can't go away and buy that very easily anywhere. So
very important to tourism though.
Well,
for here,
for the region, and but the issue we've got with the major outlets, you know, they want to range Hass.
Yes.
And they just want to sell Hass.
Yeah.
Because people, they know how to handle it.
Yeah.
It goes black when it's ripe. All these other ones stay
Yeah.
green. People, and you know, we spend 3 months of the year as an industry teaching people how to eat shepherd. And then we change
and then
back
we
to
get
Hass.
back to Hass.
Yeah, so they go a green piece of fruit and now they've got to eat a black one. But
it's a very, very important thing, though, from a tourism point of view. As from the for the travelling public, I still believe that if you've got a tomato that maybe only grows in certain spots, or you know, talking about watermelons and all sorts of things, or we have walnuts here, that's a really important thing for the travelling public. You know, that they can eat a Shirwell here in Hampton. You know, that's being grown, or a gem, or any of those sorts of things. I think it's such a plus for the area, and it could be a plus for any area if you've got something that special. You grow that's special. I think this area here, we've got to take in the elevation where we live. You know, I mean, we're here at, what time is it now? 10 o'clock in the morning, and it's cold. And it's like 16 degrees.
You know, and if you were in Bundaberg, you'd be
26 degrees,
sweating. And so these avocados, although they flower similarly to one in Bundaberg, they spend another 2 or 3 months on the tree because we just don't get the heat day degrees to grow that fruit as quick. So, and all the fruit grown in this area, whether it's an avocado or a persimmon or a lime or whatever, a lime grown here, as you say, compared to North Queensland, is going to be a different lime.
Absolutely.
It's grown slower. The cells have grown slower. It's probably, you know, a nicer lime. But then again, there's times where we mightn't be a sweeter lime because they don't get the heat.
You don't get the heat and the residual sugar.
But there are issues. But our avocados, and everyone will say it, and you will too, is that they are a better avocado. Than
the longer
they
spent.
grow.
Well, thank you very much, Daryl, for your time.
No worries.
Thanks. Oh, good morning, Hampton Blueberry people. How are you this morning?
Good.
Very good. A bit cool here.
Yeah,
lovely.
Quite cold.
So we're here this morning to talk about this amazing blueberry and other berry farms. Other bits of berries, secret berries growing down the back. I know about them. And what you're doing with this business and how you interact with the local community and the local micro region and myself. And just tell us a little bit about what you've been doing.
So we've been building up our blueberry supply and our products. So our value-add products are jams and coulis that Sue makes, so they're just wonderful, with our beautiful fruit. And we've also created a frozen product with amazing, basically first-grade raspberries and blueberries that are supplied to you, as you know, to
restaurants.
I
know all about them.
Information centres, local markets, and of course we have a farm gate that people can come here and purchase directly.
That's fantastic. And what do you guys do here on the farm? What's your story?
Well, the main things I do are grading and picking. Grading and farm gate. And so the grading's just making sure the fruit are top quality and that they're nice and eating. And also that the farm gate is like where we offer it to sell our products and
to the tourists.
So people who are coming up on the weekends or coming from Toowoomba and trying to purchase our crop.
Oh, how wonderful. And what do you do, markets or anything like that as well?
We do, in season we do a market most Sunday mornings at Norley Street Organics down in Brisbane. And
we're looking at going to Toowoomba markets, aren't we?
We're looking at going to Toowoomba.
It's like where the high country kids go to the city and show them what it's all about. Hey, talk about Hampton and all the bloody amazing blueberries. It's fabulous. Well, thank you so much for having us here today. And I can see that you're probably keen to jump over there in the bushes and eat a few more berries, especially you, Belle. And I've seen you in action before, so we might catch a bit of that on film, I think.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks.